3 months after DeShane's arrest, state psychologists questioned him about the crime in a taped interview. And it was that interview that the prosecutor later pointed to as proof of DeShane's guilt.
Are you aware that the video camera is on and a videotape is being made of this interview right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
When I think back on it now, I guess what really shocked me was when I first saw the picture of the girl in the newspaper. You know, that really made me feel like it isn't possible that I could be involved in this.
But Reggie and I watched the whole tape, and we didn't see even the slightest hint of a confession. At this point, the allegations against the police were shocking. Lost blood tests, a destroyed rape kit, made-up confessions, and other suspects that were never investigated. But that was only one side of the story. Problem was, neither the police nor the prosecutor would tell us the other side.
I mean, there may be a lot of things here that can be complete inaccuracies that we have so far that he could straighten out and say, listen, this is the way it is. That's the way it was, you know? And the other big thing I want to ask this guy is about the rape test kits.
Yeah, we got to
Why were they destroyed?
Why was Dennis's blood test sample destroyed?
Let him tell a story from his standpoint.
Mark Westrom, the first detective on the scene that night, wouldn't even return my calls.
Well, you've reached the voicemail of Sheriff Mark Westrom. Please leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Thanks.
Hi, Sheriff Westrom. This is Jerry Palace again from Court TV. I'd appreciate a phone call back, please. It's very important that I speak with you about the Dennis DeShane case.
Liquor Verton.
There it is, courthouse, right?
We decided to just head over to his office to see if we could track him down.
I'm looking for Sheriff Mark Westrom.
But Westrom was nowhere to be found.
Nobody's around.
Nobody in there.
Finally, we were told that we could find the sheriff at his other office across town.
Well,
Great, thank you very much.
that's what she said.
But when we got there, we were told that he had gone down to Portland for the day.
Got his return phone calls. Come here, he's in Portland. Jerry, like hell he's in Portland.
He knows we're around, we're probably not going away. You know, we heard one side so far, basically, that, you know, Dennis is innocent, probably the wrong man. You know, now you're the police officer that investigated this case. What do you have to say?
A little while later, we did get a call from Dan Reed, one of Westrom's deputies. Reed, a rookie at the time, was the first to respond to the Cherry abduction. He was also in a police cruiser that DeShane flagged down later that night.
What was your immediate impression of Dennis when you first saw him?
You know, it was his eyes his eyes looked very fearful. One of his knuckles was still bleeding. He had what appeared to be almost looked like a bite mark on one of his biceps. And the most troublesome was looked like tiny little handprints, fingers pointing down on both sides of his shoulders.
I mean, you remember like these handprints?
I remember those handprints as if if it happened yesterday.
Did he tell you anything else about being there and what he may have done?
I showed him the road, which was directly in front of us, and asked him if he'd ever been on this road. And first denied it, but then when I mentioned to him, brought to his attention that these documents were found in the driveway on this road, he remembered that, yes, I did go down this road, and I turned around in the driveway. I asked him to describe the house, the driveway that he turned around, and he described the residence to a T. He said he stopped at the end of the driveway, and he urinated on the lawn. And I asked him, you know, is this something that you do every day? Do you always urinate on somebody's lawn?
Now, what are you doing? What are you thinking about this girl at this point? You have some evidence that puts him at that driveway.
My biggest concern at that time was, you know, we want to find his truck as badly as he does. I think we all believed that if we found the truck, we would find her.
Do you remember them ever retrieving the clothes that Dennis was wearing that night? You know anything about that?
I don't.
I mean, they took his truck. Why take his truck and not take him? I would have kept him. I mean, this is X amount of years later we're saying this.
If Dennis would have said that night to you, I don't want you to drive me home, I want to drive my truck home, what would have been the answer?
You know, I probably would not have let him take this truck.
Maybe his clothes should have been taken off his back.
Perhaps they should have been.
What do you think about Dennis DeShane? You think he's the guy?
I do. I do, only because, well, You know, they're throwing out these theories that he was set up. You know, I find it awfully hard to believe that this man was set up by anybody.
So it's no doubt in your mind.
I have no doubt that Dennis DeShane is where he belongs.
You got a 12-year-old girl missing late at night. You know she ain't with none of her girlfriends. You got this guy lying about who he is and where he was, and his receipts found with his name on it in the driveway of where the girl was abducted from.
Right.
And you don't detain this guy? What's wrong with that picture?
We got to go to all. We got this guy Dennis. Are there any other sexual predators that we know about in the area? This guy, what is his name? Doug
Senecal.
Doug Senecal, right? Yeah. I mean, what about that? What about those guys? I don't know. It sounds like somebody's dropping the ball here.
Doug Senecal lived in the Bodenham area. His daughter was friends with Sarah Cherry.
You're kidding.
No.
We were getting nowhere with the prosecution, so we turned our attention to finding out more about Dennis DeShane. The youngest of 4 brothers, DeShane had grown up near the Canadian border, in the small town of Madawaska, Maine. By the time he was 14, both of Dennis's parents had died, which was when, according to Dennis, he turned to drugs. 2 of Dennis's brothers, Phil and Don, drove down from Madawaska to meet with us. They said they had information that could prove that their brother was innocent.
Dennis is the type of guy who would always put the other guy ahead of him.
Let me ask you: is it possible do drugs like amphetamine or something else that may have made your brother go over the edge?
Well, for a while that was an issue, but according to a couple psychiatrists and people that we have consulted since, the answer was no. It wouldn't change his behavior. It says it might make him a little disoriented, but not change his behavior.
If it's not your brother, and there's somebody out there, who is it? Does the family or anyone have ideas?
We have ideas, but
you have a name?
It's.
Your brother's in jail.
My brother's in jail.
You're trying to help your brother get out of jail. Is there somebody?
I would suspect Doug Senecal, strongly.
What would you like us to ask Doug Senecal?
Is that his DNA underneath Sarah's fingernails?
DeShane's brothers also told us about a witness named Ralph Jones. Allegedly, Jones had information that Senecal was in the area the same day Sarah Cherry was abducted. Not all the way across town like Senecal had told the police. He even gave Dennis's trial lawyer a sworn statement. In it, Jones says, "There's no question in my mind that it was Doug Senecal's truck that I saw at the end of my driveway." If Jones was telling the truth, it blew Senecal's alibi out of the water. But the prosecution did everything possible to keep Jones or anyone else with information about Senecal from testifying at Dennis's trial.
He knew her. Dennis didn't even know her. How would Dennis know she was at that house? She didn't live there. But he knew it. Senecal knew it. Wouldn't you say so? Dennis didn't even know the girl.
From all we had learned about DeShane, he didn't seem like the type of person to commit such a horrible crime. So we sent our case files to an old colleague named Ray Pierce.
If we have any further questions...
Ray was a criminal profiler for the NYPD and had received his training from the FBI. It would take Ray a couple of days to review everything, so in the meantime, we focused on tracking down Doug Senecal. Originally, we figured that he's the kind of guy that would stay local. But now we were hearing that he might have left the state.
Tom. Hi, it's Jerry Palace. How are you, buddy?
Tom Cumler is a local private investigator who's been working with Dennis's attorney.
Meet you in that parking lot, right? Great.
He agreed to meet with us to share what he knew about Senecal.
Doug Senecal lived in the Bodenham area where Sarah Cherry was murdered. He was involved in a situation with his daughter. He was charged with molesting his daughter.
own daughter?
His own daughter.
You're kidding.
No. And before, his daughter was friends with Sarah Cherry. Before he can be brought to trial for the sex offense, he sends his daughter to California so that she can't testify against him. And the state ends up dropping the charges. I attempted to interview him down in Florida last year, and I, in fact, did interview him over the telephone.
Is that where he is right now?
He is in Florida right now.
You got his address and
I have his address. I can give it to you. He was going to hang up on me initially, and he said that I was the first person he had spoken to about this, that he'd slammed the door many times on different reporters. He's very paranoid and very irrational. He's aware that most of his family thinks he did this.
Really?
His own family.
Yeah, and I said, well, give me your DNA, and you know it's not you. And you can lay this in front of your family. You can have it printed in the local newspapers in Maine, so people up here now know that you're not the person. I said, I'm not doing that, because Dennis's attorney's had my DNA for a long time, and I know he's planted it.
He actually said that.
He said that.
You think we'll be able to talk to him in the trailer park?
I hope we can.
He said he was a little erratic. Strange.
Maybe you talk to him. So it looks like we're going to Florida.
The allegations against Doug Senecal were starting to pile up. And now that we knew he was in Florida, it was time to head south and talk to him ourselves.
Ms. Senecal, how do you do? My name is Jerry Pallas. I'm a reporter with Court TV.